Hello, everyone. Welcome to the All About Holly live show. We've got Cliff at Cliff's Dark Gems. We got Nim, Secret of Nim. We've got Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics.
King of Hearts.
King of Hearts. And Gareth at Book Songs and Other Magic.
Hello.
Bad is Rad is not here today because she is feeling unwell. She is getting her husband to get a COVID test. So we hope everything is well with her. All right. So here we go. Finders Keepers. Second in the Bill Hodges and Holly books. And generally let's start off just overall impressions, and then let's get down into the weeds and some of the details. So let's just go in order. Cliff, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. To be honest, and this might be an unpopular opinion, not as much as Mr. Mercedes, to be honest. And also, it's kind of middle level King for me. I've read over 50 of his books, and I'm more into his horror, crime thrillers. He's writing something different. He did a pretty good job, but I prefer his flat out horrors. I don't think the characters are okay. We can go into that later, but it was exciting. It was a good crime novel, but the characters are not as fleshed out as in his sort of more horror novels like It and The Stand. Because I think a crime novel is more about the story, about the plot, it's kind of plot driven. Whereas a lot of horrors, and Stephen King horror is more about the characters, getting in their head. And I don't think this does it as well, but it's still a very good book. I really enjoyed it.
Nim?
Actually, I would agree. I liked Mr. Mercedes a little bit better too. I did really enjoy this one. But I think in both books they kind of had really strong beginnings and then kind of go through a dull point for me, and then really epic endings.
Very good endings, yeah.
Yeah. And I do. Yeah, I think his horror is a little bit better. Yeah.
Okay, Alan?
Okay. Well, I liked it. It is more thriller type, not much horror except for I'll talk about this character later. It's Morrison guy, especially when he gets into prison. But I liked it at first. I liked it even better than Mr. Mercedes. But now, and in the Voxer group, people were comparing it to Misery, and at first I was going, "Oh no!" But now I think about it, it does have a lot of similarities, and we can get into that later too. But I think I enjoyed it more than Cliff and Nim. But I'm looking forward to the next one too.
Ooh. What thoughts about that?
And Gareth?
I really liked it. I think to say that you prefer the horror stuff is fair enough, but it's a crime book, so it's a different part of what King does, and it's not a horror book. So I think he's good at it. I like his crime stuff, and actually his crime books have turned me on to other crime books. So whereas for some people, I think King has turned people on to horror, he has done that with crime for me, which is quite cool because I'm reading a lot more crime now. But I think he's good at it, and I think I also think Mr. Mercedes is a different kind of book to this one. It's much more. It might be the reason why it might work better for the people who prefer horror is it's probably more in your face, because he's literally running someone over at the beginning, like a whole weight of people, and that kind of violence isn't really in. There's not really much violence in Finders Keepers, yeah. So it's much more. It is actually more about characters, I'd say, Finders Keepers, because it's like about the boy, it's about the dodgy bookseller. It's halfway through the book, it becomes about the Find of Keepers team, but it's not really about them at all for ages. So I do think it's more about characters, whereas the Mercedes are more of a thriller about tension, suspense, all that sort of stuff. I like the fact that when you see interviews with Stephen King, they say to him, they describe him as a horror writer, and he says, "Oh no, don't call me a horror writer. I'm a suspense writer." And I think that's good because it kind of covers horror and crime, which is kind of like, a lot of what he does. But he's written quite a lot of crime novels now, hasn't he? And I do think he's good at it. And I liked it. I don't know which one I prefer, to be fair, but I did like it.
Can I add my 2 cents in there?
Sure, Adam. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it just shows his versatility as a writer, and that he's a storyteller. The fact that he can pull it off in different genres. I mean, my favorite book of the later King is 11/22/63.
I love that book.
Absolutely blew me away. And that's not a horror. So you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. He tells just an incredible story. And the only thing I disagree with what you said is that the characters are very well developed. Because I do think that with crime and thrillers, it's about the moving on of the plot. It's a different kind of book. I don't know how to actually explain it. It's like,
but I think he doesn't do it that. I think it'd be a shorter book if it was just plot. Because you can do a really good crime book in like 250 pages if it's just the crime itself. But because King is King, he does develop especially the boy and the family, that stuff, with his sister, those kind of things develop quite a lot.
Right.
And I think those kind of elements are in the book a lot more because it's Stephen King writing it and he loves characters, Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I just think he does it better in the horror. That's all.
So, what I'm going to do is Bad has gave me a very brief comment about, just, you can't be just. I found this book very interesting and I enjoyed the creative writing. The ending surprised me and Stephen King did an excellent job in this book. I enjoyed this book better than Mr. Mercedes.
Oh,
okay. So mine is that I did enjoy this a lot. I'm not going to say it's better than Mr. Mercedes. They're really roughly equal. They're just the one that I really kind of dug is when the book first started off. And Hodges and Holly, it felt like a totally different book. It's like he had this idea of I forget Morrison, the killer,
Morris, isn't it?
Morris, not more Morris. The story of Morris and Peter were their own book, and you could could have really just tossed out Bill Hodges and Holly.
Yeah.
Entirely.
You could have had like a totally unknown police force intervene at the end of the story, but he wanted to carry on with those characters.
Tacked on at the end.
Yeah.
It did. It did felt right.
Scooby-Doo, the Scooby-Doo squad coming at the end.
No, I don't think it's tacked on at the end in a bad way, though. I don't think he just threw it on at the end. I think it was a creative decision to do something different with it, so it's not all about them. I thought it was good because it was like introducing a story that lives by itself, and then now I'm going to bring in the characters that I'd already brought in to flesh out basically the second half. The second half of the book is them, isn't it? And how they interweave with it.
The problem I had is that you bring them in too late, and I was trying to grow into those characters after the first novel, and it's almost like they come in too late and kind of a subplot. And yes, they're there, but you don't learn more about Holly. You don't learn more about these characters. I'm hoping that in the third book, you can actually really get into these three. Look, Jerome irritates me. I'm sorry. I don't like Jerome. I really don't like Jerome.
You're not
but the other two are potential, but the thing is that it just came in too late. And it was like, as you said, the book could have been a standalone without them. It was actually going really well up till then without them. And then they kind of conveniently become part of the story.
Well, I like the second half more. So, it's I guess for some people the first half works better, for other people the second half works better. But I like the way he brought it all together and I thought the ending was really good.
I like the ending. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was just not enjoying the fact that I wanted to get to know them better. If they'd been introduced earlier, I would have got to know the characters better, like Holly, like Bull Hodges, and that was my problem. It was too late for character development from the first book, so it was kind of convenient to put him in there. But the book without them would have actually really done well.
I think he's done that before, where he's left it a good couple of 100 pages before he's brought in a really important character. So I think it's just his style that sometimes he thinks, well, I don't have to do that yet. I'll do it later. I think I've seen that a few times.
Well, part of it is when you think about the structure, you can see him setting up the plot. Okay, you have this author, the Rothstein, who's really J.D. Salinger. Do you agree, Alan? It's J.D. Salinger.
Pension too.
Could be Pension, but I'm saying it's J.D. Salinger.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, he's having fun, but so he gets this idea.
J.D. Salinger's dead, but that's okay.
Well, was he dead when this book was written? It was published in 2015.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, you're right.
It might have been, but it just sets it up. It doesn't. That part doesn't really matter as much. So he sets it up, and then he has to tell the story of how Morris steals the money, kills his people who helped him, and then buries the money, and then gets sent to prison.
Yeah,
for a different one.
Then you have Peter.
Where all kinds of shenanigans ensue that are quite odd, but continue.
Yeah, so the problem is, it's like the story got away. It's like, you do a couple, you think about it, a chapter or two, but the story itself, I could just see it running away with Stephen King. It's like, okay, got this. And then he tells the story of Peter. And sooner or later, you've got about 200 pages? It's on my Kindle, so it's harder to say.
Yeah, it's about that. Yeah. It's about that.
About 200
It's
pages.
halfway through the book that he changes it, isn't it?
Yeah.
You also note it changes from first person to third person. Changes narration from first person to third person. It's kind of jarring.
Which one was the first person?
It did.
When Bull Hodges and Holly and all in the first person.
They're not first person.
I'm sure it's first person, but I know that it changes the whole time. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't think it did.
I get that.
It's funny when you said that. I was thinking that maybe I was remembering and the beginning bit was first person, but yeah, clearly I can't remember either whether it's first person or third person.
Well, check back on it. Yeah, I'm wrong, but I think I'm right. And it's maybe it's not a big deal. But
Well, the problem is that with Morris and Peter, it's a very limited. It might as well be first person because you're in that character's head.
That's true.
In their section, so it's just all the way through. So
yeah, and I think Morris and Peter especially. Peter's the boy, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Both of those characters, I think, are really vivid, and they are the heart of the book. Which might be what you're saying. It should have been Hodges, but they are really well developed, and you do get that sense that they're really real. And the other characters are peripheral, which I agree with Cliff that you don't necessarily get that much new stuff with Holly and Jerome. I think Hodges is kind of like a bit of an archetype anyway, so I don't think he's going to be that much more developed because he's like a typical detective character, that you see everywhere. But I think he's trying to do something different with Holly, especially, and you get these little moments, little like sentences that show that he's got a different idea of what Holly is. So that might develop more in the third book, but they're quite subtle, aren't they, with Holly?
Well,
I wanted to see more of them. That's all. You don't see enough of them in this book, especially Holly. Yeah.
Well, Holly's just. I mean, Holly's. I can see why he wrote this, and then he wrote more stories about her, because you start off with this woman who has a lot of serious issues with herself, and then she wakens up. Wait a second. I can actually be a useful person because I have all these skills and help out. And you sort of beginning to see it with her being Bill's assistant. And she's getting lots of the stuff done that he would normally have done if he were a younger police officer and a lot of legwork.
Right. And now Finders
But
Keepers.
see, like it was very. Oh, I'm
Sin,
sorry.
what do you think about it, Sin?
Nim?
Oh, it was just
Oh,
very
sorry.
like. Oh,
Sorry, Nim.
you're good.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going off of what you were saying. It was very just like info dumpy how developed her character became from the first book to this one. Like she was just like this kind of like shut in, and then all of a sudden she's doing all this stuff for Bill. So I can see like she had so much character development that was just like a giant info dump. Like she's a
Whereas
totally
you want to
different
see it go
person.
slower. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all.
I was just going to point out Finders Keepers is the name of their detective agency.
Right.
One, pretty, it's the title of it. And the title of the next book is kind of poignant too. What is the title of
End of the Watch.
End of watch.
So we know what's going to happen. One thing. End of watch.
You're going to stop watching something.
It's a set up. That's what the procedure will say, right?
Yeah.
End of
Well,
watch. Day is
I'm
done.
looking forward to the next book because of the little last section of this book. A return.
Oh, yeah, he set something up, hasn't he?
Potential return to the supernatural, some kind of supernatural element, maybe.
Yeah, well, I definitely think that oh God, what was his name? Brady.
He gets hit in the head.
Yeah, he's developing some sort of ability that it is going to take off, and like you said, I think that's going to be a lot more focused on the core group of characters.
I hope so.
And I tell you what, I think just talking about that, the way that it's developed, like it's 3 books, and he's hinted at something that's going to be developed in the 3rd book. And I do like the fact that he's not been that predictable. Like he said, "Oh, I'm going to use these characters again," and he's spent half a book talking about someone else, you know. And it's called Finders Keepers, and it's not really about Finders Keepers. And then the 3rd book is clearly going to be about something that's hinted at in the 2nd book, is not even in the 1st book. And I think that's quite interesting. I think it's like he's not just going, well, I'm going to rewrite the same story again, because I quite enjoyed writing the other one, so I'll write the same one again with the same characters. He's doing something different each time, trying to find something else to say, or find something different to say. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's absolutely true, because when you get into a lot of crime books or police procedural books, you get this feeling that the sameness, you know, crime is committed, police officer comes in, solves the crime, end of the book, you know. But this one, it's like you don't know what to expect, because the first crime in the Mr. Mercedes was totally different from this one, and it'll be different in the 3rd, I presume. So
and Hodges still has he can't let go of Brady, you know, for some reason.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And actually, I thought Brady was a much more effective criminal, to be honest, than Morris.
Well, that's because Brady's a sociopath. That's why.
Yeah,
right. But you see, hold on. I kind of like Morris I mean, not that I would like him as a person, but as a character, I think he was a little bit more interesting.
Yeah. Do you feel like kind of almost not sorry for him, but like Brady and his brother, you kind of feel sorry for him because of their mother, you know, they're effed up and.
Well, Morris didn't. I mean, he sort of had a messed up life too, but I could sort of see what was going on with him a little clearer. He's a more realistic. I mean, Brady was such a psychopath that he just took it a little bit outside the realm, but Morris,
yeah, but that's why I think he's more effective, because he's a psychopath. Morris comes across for me as a bit of a hoodlum. kind of a loser who blames everyone else for everything that happens to him.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing about him, the biggest thing for me about him that actually attracts me to him, fair enough, and about the book, is that he's obsessed with a character in a book. And that's the thing that fills him, and that's the thing that motivates him. And that's the thing that keeps him going when he's in prison. Yeah. But besides that, he's actually doesn't come across as that strong a villain for me. Whereas, sorry, who am I talking about? The other guy?
Brady.
Yeah. He's more fleshed as a villain. He's a psychopath. And
but I like the fact they're so different. I like the fact there's different kinds of villains. They're different kinds of criminals, different kinds of threats. You know, he could have easily just repeated the same thing again. Do you know what I mean? But he didn't.
Yeah.
He did something different.
I just liked him more. That's all.
Brady was more like psychological. Morris felt more just like a cold-blooded killer.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, that scene where he's got, because the whole ending is awesome, but that bit where they're all in different places and Morris has got Peter in the back of the shop and he's a kid and you know that he's probably going to kill him, he's going to hurt him. It's like the threat of violence on a kid in the back of a shop where it looks like there's no one around that knows where he is. I just think that's awesome. And the way that the Finders Keepers team get involved is kind of natural as well, so he doesn't just suddenly appear. And because that's another thing that I think he could have easily done that badly, and then it's like, well, that's some sort of crap Deus Ex Machina where they just suddenly appear. But they're kind of like finding these clues, and Holly's doing a lot of that, isn't she? She's kind of putting things together. And then that's why they end up at the shop, isn't it? And I like that because it's like you're saying that he's like a hoodlum, and like Nim's saying he's just some sort of thug. And that's why you're worried about Peter, because he's in the back of the shop with this nutcase. And that's true for if it was going to be Brady as well. But it shows that it's an effective villain, that you are worried about what he's going to do to Peter in the back of the shop. And he's already killed the other guy. Is it Andy? Yeah. The other guy? Andy?
No.
Andy's a shopkeeper.
Yeah. So he's killed him.
Yeah.
And he had a long relationship with him. He just killed him because he doesn't care, doesn't he?
He says he's not going to kill him. Not going to kill you.
Well, no, the reader knows more. He's going to kill him.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the things that works. If we weren't worried about Peter, then we clearly wouldn't have been sold on Morris being threatening.
Yeah, I think the thing that makes him threatening for me is the fact that this obsession. And that's the only thing that fills him. That's the only thing that drives him. And that makes him a relentless killer. And he'll do anything to retrieve what is his. And that's the one thing that sets him apart from anything else.
It's also the thing that means Hodgins finds him, because they get to him eventually through finding Peter's teacher and all these other things that like, it's that author and all that. That's what leads him to get caught in the end as well.
Yeah.
And he also is driven. He wants to find out what happens in the story, and if that what is Gold character, that the writer killed off. What about Peter and all that stuff he does for his family? He's doles out the money to them so they can survive and pay the rent and bills, and then
that sets up all the
scripts.
But that sets up all the holes that means that eventually Peter's going to get threatened, because that's the clever thing about the book. I think that there's all these kind of problems that are set up by what these characters are doing. Right. So the obsession is the thing that means that that Morris ends up losing. But Peter's problem with like using this money and then it comes from nowhere, and there's no way that Peter would have that money, so that's suspicious. All these different things that mean that it's not going to end well. That's all set up really well, I think. And that again, that's the effectiveness of the beginning of the story as well.
Yeah,
it is. And I was going to mention this is like, you think yourself, well, what was it, Peter, 13 or 14 when he found that money? About that age?
Yeah.
What would people do if they came across like a trunk full of money? Logically, that it's probably ill-gotten money that's been forgotten.
I would
and
spend
then
that shit.
What?
I would spend that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, exactly.
I think
There's no way you would think you'd get found out, would you?
Really keep the money. I mean, I'm keeping it.
He does say, doesn't he? He kind of rationalizes it. He says that he thinks that that person would have been in prison. That money has been left for years. He doesn't think that there's any life in that money anymore, so he can spend it. So he doesn't know that the guy's going to get released, and blah, blah, blah.
He's 13 and 14, and his family is falling apart. So that's the only thing on his mind. And it's the big difference between him and villain guy is he's completely selfless, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
That obsession, he gets obsessed, and but there's a sense of selflessness. He wants to look after his family.
Yeah, and I like his relationship with his sister. I think that was good, and he wants to help her out, which is also why it ends up
And then he runs out of money, right? He runs out of money, and then what's left, and that drives him nuts. And that's where the obsession comes in. He wants to sell these books. He wants to do whatever, but it's all coming.
That's what gets him found out by Morris. The fact that he's trying to help his sister out.
Right. Yeah. Then it becomes a No Country for Old Men situation.
Yeah.
Remember,
which is a better comparison. I think that's a better comparison than Misery. I think.
Yeah, I think you probably brought it up in the boxing group, Gareth.
Yeah. I mean, they are quite different books. I mean, No Country for Old Men is just like a one note kind of like relentless guy just being a nutcase, whereas this has got lots of different characters and there's also different motivation stuff. I mean, King wouldn't write a book like No Country for Old Men because he loves characters too much, right?
But you did tell me you liked my point about Misery, eh?
Say again?
You did say on the Boxer thing, you liked my point about Misery, that it's about the characters, not about the author. The bottom line is it's about Annie Wilkes and the characters, and it's about Morris and the characters.
It's about those two characters. It's about those more. Well, yeah, it's about those two characters. But I do think this book is about 7 or 8 characters.
Yeah.
So I do think there is.
I'm talking about that obsession, that idea about the book is about obsession. It's not all what it's about. I mean, they're totally different books.
Like Misery's about obsession more. I think Misery's about obsession. I think the obsession's a bit in the background in this one. I think it sets it up, but it's not really, it's really about the chase to get Peter for Morris. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
What about
but
this?
That's what I'm getting to you about. It's a thriller. If it was a horror, it would focus on the obsession, and therefore you got Misery, where you got one-on-one, you got a small stage. You don't have this huge thing of characters, and you got a very sinister psycho, and a very in-depth sort of character study of Annie Wilkes, and that for me is a lot more intense. It's a lot more focused. Whereas here you got a range of characters, so it's about the characters and about the race against time and them coming together and that stuff. And that's what a thriller is.
Well, Cliff?
In Misery and this book, the manuscript ends up getting destroyed in the same way. When you think
Say that again?
Getting
the manuscript gets destroyed the same way through fire. At the very end, like the same type of.
I'll tell you what, though. One of the things in one of the things in Misery that I thought slowed the book. I love Misery, so I'm not slagging it off. But one of the things I didn't like about it was these massive chunks of the book that was it Paul was writing, and I just didn't find the book he was writing that interesting. So you don't have.
Yeah.
Say again.
It was missing letter R, like the type. E. It was missing the letter E.
But yeah. Which is cool. That's a nice little thing. But just you didn't have that in the new book, which is nice because if Finders Keepers had loads of text from this book that these two characters were obsessed with, I'd think, oh God, that's all right if it's a good book. But I did find that Misery, the book, was better than the book inside the book.
Yeah, absolutely.
All about that Misery.
Is that in Misery and in Finders Keepers, you have Annie Wilkes very upset with Paul, who killed off her favorite character in his series.
Yeah.
And in Finders Keepers, you have John Rothstein not killing her, but apparently selling out the character to the point where Morris says, "You kill." I mean, he's not dead like Misery, but you killed this character. It was so great. Yeah. How could you do it? And as the reader, he basically wanted the author to rewrite the story.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you got that really close connection between the two.
I thought it was really good. There was a bit where Peter was goading Morris because he'd read the other book about him and saying, well, what you haven't read is that this happens, and and that incenses him even more. I like that bit because Peter was quite for a young guy, he was quite brave, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's we got a few comments here. That Bad is having a wonderful audio. I'm lying here with my eyes closed. A good, great conversation. And people just talking. We got the almighty Om. Thank you. I don't do well with sickness. I feel bummed out, but I'm also so proud of everyone here. Topics are on fire. Oh, we wish you were here too.
Yeah.
Either my medication is making me see things, or I see Alan as a Marvel character. Am I tripping out? No, you weren't tripping out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Alan was wearing a mask.
That's your headgear. What Marvel character was it?
I just left over from Halloween.
Should we call you? What about Al? We'll call you Big Hard Man.
I got to change my name. I forgot I even have the King of
I know
Hearts.
it's a joke, Al.
There's Leslie there. Hello, Leslie.
So Leslie's watching.
Hey, Leslie.
Hi, Leslie.
Watching. All right.
Hi, Mark. Yeah, a sociable time. We're at a sociable time so that Cliff can be here.
Yeah.
What's that?
We're this early so you can be here, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're coming in at a.
Yeah, if I was 3 in the morning, I'd be fast asleep. I'd be.
What time is it for you now?
It's about, what time is it on the show?
It's 12:30 on the East Coast.
Yeah, it's about 7:30 now. It's getting darker. Oh, it's dark.
No. 7:30 at night.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're not that far from me. I'm like 25 to 5.
Yeah.
25 to 6. 25 to 6.
Yeah. So when you have it at your usual time, it's 3 o'clock in the morning here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not a morning person.
Yeah, I have to stay up late to do things with them too. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But Gareth, you stay up late doing gigs anyway, so it's not like
I stay up late anyway. Yeah.
You're a musician. You can stay all night, man.
Liam, what time is it with you?
For me,
Yeah.
it's 10:30
In the morning?
At night.
Yeah.
10:30
No,
a.m.
They're all different times. How
Yeah.
mad is that?
Are we the only two going into nighttime, Gareth?
Yeah, well, yeah. This is a long time before my bedtime now, so it's fine. I've got 8 hours.
Well, it's
Yeah.
kind of funny that all of us in the U.S. are all in different time zones, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's because you're massive.
We're covering a large part of the globe here in this.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've just got one time zone. Little tip of South Africa. Little tip of Africa.
So are we going to read the short story next? Before,
Nope. Next month is End of the Watch.
End of what?
End of watch, yeah.
Then it is The Outsider. Then If It Bleeds.
And then Holly.
Follow up at the very end with Holly.
Cool.
I'm a little bit. How long is The Outsider? It's quite a big one, isn't it?
No, it's not so big.
Is it not?
600 pages.
600 pages is a lot for me.
No, it's about 300-400 pages. I'm sure it's not that big.
It's. You want to know how big it is? I'm telling you, it's.
He has it in his hand.
Mine is 560.
Yeah. I've got
nothing
it up there, so I've got it. But yeah, it's going to take me, I don't know, what's that? It'll take me a few weeks, I think, that one.
Oh.
All right. Well, that's
I mean, you work and have
April.
a family. You know, we're retired and insomniac.
But I've heard very good things about The Outsider. I've heard it's brilliant, eh? I've heard The Outsider is really good.
Yeah, I think it's quite a popular one with do you guys watch people do like ranking of Stephen King books? Do you like watching that? I watch a lot of those. When
What,
like YouTubers do ranking of Stephen King books, their favorite, like they do top 50 or something.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, I like watching those.
What's interesting is just how vastly different the rankings are.
Yeah.
And-
That could, because King appeals to readers in so many different ways. Like you say, some people rave about the book we're talking about now. Some people hate on it. It's all about he speaks to people in different ways. That's all.
I noticed when I first started watching those that people kept saying that Dreamcatcher was terrible. I haven't read it. I haven't read that one. And then someone said it was their favorite King book, and it's just like, well,
it's one of my favorites.
No, it's pretty terrible. It's pretty terrible.
I like it a lot. Why is it terrible, Cliff?
It's just a mess. At the beginning of Dreamcatcher, the first sequence is actually very brilliant. It's these 4 guys in the woods, hunters, and then they get this guy that's comes like begging for help.
I know.
And there's a thing called shit weasels. So, it's a lot of body horror. A lot of body horror. And he goes in the toilet and he starts, and stuff comes out of him everywhere, and then it turns into some kind of science fiction alien thing, and it's confusing, and
I wasn't confused.
And I think he wrote the whole book when he was completely high. He says that he actually doesn't like the book himself. He doesn't like the book.
You saying you need to read it when you're completely high? Is that what you're saying, Cliff?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
well, Cliff, I think he wrote that. That was the first book he finished after being in his accident.
That's correct. Yeah. If you look at the photo,
that's right.
The photo cover. Yeah.
So he was high on medication. And
the medication was Percodan.
Yeah.
I like the idea that the back of the book is him like all bandaged up and you can't see his face.
Well, his eyes are all messed up, and Tabitha takes photos, So I think the aftermath, he says he was messed up.
Yeah. Well, there's some parts about it that I enjoyed, but it's a mess.
Well, he also had that early career where he, I guess, was really on drugs a lot.
Yeah.
Something like Tommy Knockery. Tommy Knockery.
He can't remember writing Cujo.
He doesn't even remember writing it.
Yeah, exactly.
But Cujo's really good.
No, it is. But maybe you need to watch that while you're on drugs.
Maybe we could be doing this on drugs.
No.
Have we got any more comments? We've got people going.
Not specifically about the book. People coming in saying hi. That was Mark. We got knitting. Christina. Hey. So, parts of it, that I liked about the book was when he was talking about the author, because I definitely identified Salinger in Rothstein, and Stephen King was talking, I guess, wondering why Salinger withdrew from the writing world. He at one point was top of the writing world. What was it? Late 50s, mid 50s, somewhere around there.
Yeah, with the New Yorker stories and all that.
New Yorker stories, and then he just stopped publishing. And you have that parallel. Now, see, I've never read Catcher in the Rye, but I kind of figured out that gold was Colden Hawfield, or a type of Colden Hawfield if Salinger had continued to write about the character.
And that's who Morris was identifying with, that kind of character.
Yes, that totally obsessed. Alan, you're the only one I know that's read Catcher in the Rye here.
Oh yeah,
I read it when I was at school. I have to tell you, at school. Sorry, but I haven't read it for years. I was going to read it again this year for the banned books thing, but I did read it at school.
Oh yeah,
I taught it.
Yeah,
I taught it.
I've read a lot of Salinger. I've even read like that In Search of J.D. Salinger, the nonfiction, and his writing habits, and he's real he's a Buddhist, heavily into meditation, and boy, his ex wrote a scathing memoir about him too. I read recently, last year before.
And the thing with him referring back to J.D. Salinger or using a kind of a metaphorical character, if you like, or a similar character, I do think it's interesting that because King sometimes gets criticized for writing about writers a lot, and a lot of his characters are writers. But I think that he just loves writing and likes. He raves about writers. If you read his books on writing, he doesn't so much. He loves talking about other writers, doesn't he? And he loves kind of saying what he loves about them. And I do think that it'd be like me talking about other singers and other songwriters, and that's not me going on about songwriters and singers. That's me loving songwriters and singers. And I do think that gets misunderstood. Sometimes people think, oh, he's just repeating the same thing, but he really loves writing and loves writers.
And a lot of people say this is actually a book about books.
It is.
A lot of name dropping of authors and books, and it takes place in a bookstore, and it's a book about books.
And
That's one of the things I also love is like he really got this idea is that a reader can really all of a sudden find their author. That you fall in love with the author and their works, and like you say, you can become really obsessed. And Stephen King is kind of good for that because there are lots of readers who are totally obsessed with Stephen King. Yeah. Like you just mentioned earlier, you get all these ranking videos of people who
people who call themselves constant readers because they will read anything he does, and I've read a lot of. It's scheduled for about a month's time, but I go through my Stephen King books on a video that I've got scheduled up, and I have got 64, I think, or 65 books of his. It's a nice collection. I've kind of just found them cheap over the years, and I haven't read anywhere near that amount. I've read about 20 something, and I've never read a book I didn't like by him. So I've been a bit selective because I think there were some I think I might not like, but I don't know yet. But I have liked everything I've read, but I've not been someone who's just read his stuff or read voraciously. I've spread them out over the years a little bit, But yeah, there are people who they know everything about him. They know how all the books connected and all that sort of stuff. Yeah,
that's for the best. It's better to read a variety of authors. Really, honestly.
I enjoy how he mentions other books, and even like he mentioned it in this, didn't he? Or Mr. Mercedes, and he mentioned one of his movies.
Yeah, there's a mention of
that was in the first book.
In the first book,
and in the line, they mentioned the killer clown.
It.
Yeah.
I like
it. That's awesome. But yeah, if you do, because I think if you do that and you do little nuggets, I think it's really cool to read. To go, oh, nice. And if you do it as a plot device, then that could mean that someone has to read that other book before they understand what's happening. So it's quite nice if it's a little nugget that doesn't really affect the story, so anyone can read it. Do you know what I mean?
It's like an Easter egg,
Yeah, little Easter eggs.
Yeah. Well, there's a term. It's all metafiction, and Stephen King's not the first author to put themselves into their novels. I mean, but it rarely works well. I find it's just.
Are you talking about the Dark
Tower, especially?
Yeah. Well, careful of spoilers for people watching, hey?
Okay. We know there's spoilers on Finders Keepers, but I guess we should.
Yeah. That is a bit of a spoiler, eh?
But no, it seems to be the Dark Tower seems to be where it comes back and forth into other books and that, doesn't it? I mean, I haven't read the Dark Tower stuff. I've got the Gunslinger. Yes, the only one I've bought from the Dark Tower is the Gunslinger, so that I can read that first book to make a judgment about whether I want to carry on. But that I think the Dark Tower ones are pretty much the only books I haven't got by him, except for a couple of the newer ones. I haven't got Holly yet.
I've read the entire Dark Tower series, and my wife is busy with the Gunslinger, and I'm very, very careful about not giving her spoilers because she is determined now to read through the whole series. So when you start talking about stuff like that, I'm going to say no. Because because it is a big spoiler.
Okay.
All right, well,
Yeah.
we got some mentions here. It's like,
Okay.
Christina, I came in now, but I read there are spoilers. Well, for Squiner Keepers,
I'm
yeah.
leaving. Oh,
It's hard to talk about. I'm leaving. I'm out of here. It's hard to talk about a book without spoilers, isn't it? Because you end up just almost saying something. Mm. You guys, because all five of us do book reviews. Do you find some have a different approach? So I try and do a non-spoiler review that is got enough detail in it that you're getting more than just a vague impression of the book, but it's not proper spoilery. So you're not like spoiling the plot, but you're saying more than just how you feel about it. How do you? Because there's some booktubers that do it in sections. They'll do a spoiler bit at the end. How do you feel about? What's your approach to reviewing books?
No. How do you do it?
I don't
No.
ever do spoilers.
Yeah.
I read a lot of messed up books, so I don't even do trigger warnings. I tell people to look up the trigger warnings if they need to, because I think like a lot of what I read, the trigger warnings are spoilers for
Yeah.
like
Yeah, that's a good
extreme
point.
horror and splatterpunk. So
Well, the problem is,
Just like that.
when if you're saying you're reviewing extreme horror, okay, you don't need to see triggers because you kind of know it's extreme horror. It's going to contain,
yeah.
well,
I'll
a
give you
lot of
reading this
people
book. I'll
get
give you
pissed.
A lot of people don't. You actually need to say it, I think. Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
true though. What I'm saying, it's a plot point, isn't it? So if something does happen, but you already read on the back that it was going to happen, that does kill the suspense, doesn't it?
and maybe not. I mean, I have been toying a whole video about trigger warnings because generally speaking, I'm opposed in general just about putting in all sorts of warnings on books. I just don't think books or media needs to be warned. But
Yeah, I don't like it, but I say it just because I mean people have been known to get upset.
Yeah. I did a video. Sorry,
But
carry
yeah,
on.
I mean there are a lot of people that read horror that will say, trigger warning for the R word, child abuse, violence against children, whatever. I just say look up the trigger warnings if you need them. So
Yeah. I
Yeah.
basically had to do that for a book that I love, which is called The Wasp Factory. It's not an extreme horror novel. Not an extreme horror novel, but if you give a review and don't tell about the animal torture and the absolute brutal animal torture, then people are going to come back to you. You have to let people know. I'm sorry. If there's something really, really wrong, you have to let people know. If there's like a very graphic rape scene or just say, just be warned, there's some rape here.
Yeah.
But as for giving reviews, I always give a spoiler-free review for like 10, 15 minutes or 10 minutes where I'll talk about the book just generally. And then I'll go into spoiler territory and I'll say, I've done it for a couple of books. I haven't given enough reviews. I should give more. But then I'll say, okay, now we're entering spoiler territory where I actually talk about specific things in the book, like talking points.
Yeah, I've just realised that I have totally gone against my own rules for the banned books project, and I've just spoiled like crazy. I've done loads of spoilers in my banned books videos. But
the thing is, when I don't do a lot of spoilers, but sometimes a book is kind of hard to discuss.
Yeah,
when you don't let people know what's happening,
Yeah. I've just done a 25-minute video on Animal Farm, and they literally pretty much mentioned everything that's in the book. So I ought to put
I did
contained
do spoilers for The Haunting of Adeline, actually. I remember that. And I warned people, I'm going into spoilers here, That ended up more so being a rant review because I hated that book so much.
Yeah. But sometimes it's difficult to tell what a spoiler is and what It's not like how much information do you give, how much do you leave out.
Yeah. Well,
You know what
I
I say?
think if you do the first sort of 20, 30 pages, if you say about that, then you haven't spoiled anything.
Yeah,
Especially
Right.
if it's if it's like 400 pages or something. And then I suppose if you go beyond the halfway point, you probably are spoiling things. And if it's a big change in direction in the book as well, if there's a twist or there's a plot moment that is supposed to make you go, then that's a
then you're
spoiler, isn't
ruining things.
Right.
Then you're completely ruining things.
it?
Yeah, like you talk about the end of Psycho or something.
Yeah.
You know, like
Mother.
people probably know the end by now, but you know, it's supposed to be
I
like
tell you what,
a total shocker.
there is an argument that even saying there's a twist is a spoiler. Isn't it? So people
Hey.
waiting for the twist, you know.
Right.
So I
Or
don't know.
they say there's no twist. It's all logical.
There's no ending. There's no ending. Oh, there is an ending. Oh.
Actually, Bad here has something that's kind of interesting. I'm going to bring up. Someone said in a live stream, it's hypocritical to say animal torture triggers, but why are we okay with human torture? Interesting point. What do you guys think?
Oh, the amount of times I've heard someone say, "You can do what you want with a person, but don't harm a dog." It gets people, doesn't it? It gets people.
I'm reading with Dad next month, and we're reading The Return to Black Farm. Correct me if I'm wrong. And there's a lot of people torture, very nasty people torture.
Right?
So should be trigger warnings or not?
I would find it hard with like kids, violence against kids. I'd find that hard. I'm pretty I don't really get affected by like there was like when I read Tender is the Flesh, that's got some awful stuff in it. But I didn't flinch reading any of that. But I think violence against kids, I've avoided this. I don't even know how much violence there is against kids, but I've avoided Lord of the Flies all of my life because I
brilliant.
hate.
I talked to
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
I'm sure it's
I
brilliant.
don't remember
I
it being huge. I mean, hugely violent. I think kids.
Is it psychologically violent? I hate bullying. I really hate bullying, and like psychologically violent. Is it?
I do too, but sometimes it's good to face up to what's actually happening so that you can, deal with it.
Yeah, I'm
it's
sure.
like-
No,
it's like
I'm sure it's brilliant. I'm
opposite
not
level.
criticizing the book. I just have avoided reading it myself because I'm a wuss about kids being violent, especially kids. Well, not necessarily, especially kids violent against kids, but just children being hurt is horrible.
Yeah, I've been a teacher. Well, I was a teacher for like close to 17 years, and I'm totally with you. I understand you. I think one of my big gripes, and that's why I hate Carrie so much, even though I gave it 3 stars, because it's a good book, but I hate the bullying. And I actually put a book on my TBR for this month called Playground.
Oh,
Nod your head, yeah. And it's about kids that's the extreme novel, and it's about kids getting hurt in absolutely awful ways. And I haven't read it. I don't know if I can bring myself to ever read that. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah,
it's gross. It's gross.
Have you read it?
Yeah.
Is it terrible? Is it terrible? Okay.
Did you enjoy
Yeah,
it? Lynn?
it's pretty bad. I liked it. I've read better extreme stuff, but yeah. I mean, it's
How
also
do you
it's
cope with
gross.
that?
Like it's so much more than just kids being hurt. Like it's a lot of other gross out stuff too.
And what message does it give? Is there a message to the book, or is it just that? No, seriously, no.
I'm
Yeah,
thinking. I'm
good question.
thinking. It's been a
Extreme
while.
horror. I've read extreme horror that gives very interesting messages, social messages. There's more to say than just gratuitous,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say. I mean,
Yeah.
there are a
And-
couple of things, yeah. But
Think on it
are
a
there
bit.
huge messages? No, but are there underlying things? A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Think about it. Extreme horror can be very good because it can give you some messages and stuff. But
Okay.
I mean, I avoided Carrie for the same reason, Cliff. And then I read it last year and I absolutely loved it. But all the King stuff I've read and all the years because I've been reading Stephen King since I was about 15. So that's 30 years or something, over 30 years. But I'd always avoided Carrie, and I really liked it. Really, really liked it. And it's his first book, which is quite cool. But yeah, I read it last year for the first time. I thought, just do it. Just don't worry about it. Just do it. Read it. And
Well,
yeah, I liked it.
I reread Carrie 2 years ago for like the first time in like 20 years or something. But what I took from it is that even though there was bullying going on, it felt very authentic. That this is something kids would actually do to each other.
Yeah.
So,
Well, this is why it hits you, isn't it?
And you had the one, I forgot, there were two girls, the one who was really mad and the one who actually participated in the first bullying scene and actually felt guilty, saying, yeah, what I did was wrong.
Yeah.
It's nuanced, isn't it?
What?
It's nuanced. There's different characters feeling different about it. Yeah.
Right.
But the biggest bully in Carrie is her mum. She's the biggest bully in it. Her mum's a nightmare. But Brady's mum in Mr. Mercedes is interesting as well.
A slightly different kind of whack job, but still.
Yeah. I wonder. I need to know what Stephen King's mum was like, because clearly he thinks mums are nutcases.
I don't know. I can't remember. Does he have a kind, sympathetic, good mother character? I guess Mother Abigail from The Stand would kind of be that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The mum in Cujo, I suppose.
She's 110 years old and makes her own bread. Mother Abigail. Mother Abigail.
Yeah. We need to find out what Stephen King's mum's like.
More compassion.
We've gone off the point. Sorry, Brad. We were talking about animals, weren't we?
We were?
Yeah.
We're drifting away from Finders Keepers, and I'm trying to
completely
and kind of go back in and
it's a good question, though.
It's a fine direction because that's what happens.
Well, how do you guys feel about animals being? Do you guys feel differently when animals are attacked rather than people?
What about in Wuthering Heights? I was going to bring up
Finders Keepers. Come.
Cliff kills a dog. Spoiler alert! It's only like 111 years old, But poor Wuthering Heights gets blamed for animal abuse. Now, it takes place back in the,
Well, back when that was written, I mean, people were a lot crueler to animals and just more accepting of dogs.
That's true.
Just a dog.
So, but I know some people. I mean, friends of mine. My partner Brian hates bookish. He's a Wuthering Heights hater, because of that.
Yeah.
Because of the scene where a dog scene.
Yeah, Heathcliff kills the dog.
It's always dogs, isn't it? We don't care about chickens. What about chickens?
Yeah.
What about geese? Violence against geese. Leave the geese alone.
Well, but I'll have to say, in Jude the Obscure, there is a hog slaughtering scene near the beginning.
There we go.
Hog slaughtering.
Pigs are awesome.
You got to sweat them hogs.
And I admit it. I get very upset. There's violence towards cats in a book. I mean, just.
Oh sure, yeah.
Yeah, I'm more for the dogs. Huh?
This game's true cats. What about when cats are violent against people?
I love your cats.
Pet Cemetery.
I'm sorry, you missed some. I said you said something about Pet Cemetery, Gareth, and then
I said, what about when cats are violent against people, like Pet Cemetery?
Oh yeah.
That's a trigger warning.
well, the one book that I met was the book Feral. I can't remember, Bertrand Ruchet. It's an animal attacks book that features cats. And I remember because it starts off in the 70s, and there's this couple. They go out to Long Island, which back then was sort of not well populated, and they adopted a summer cat for their vacation. And at a summer, oh well, got to release the cat back, in the wild. I'm going like, and then of course it's more people are doing that, and then the cats are going out on the rampage, and I'm going, you get them cats, just get them. I was rooting for the cats, So Carrie,
my cat's a psycho. So if anyone wrote about Rosie, then it'll be definitely an animal attack book. If she just attacks on a whim.
Am I the only dog person here?
No, I've got 2 dogs.
No, I'm a dog person.
Nim has a dog.
Have you seen my dogs?
Yeah.
No, yeah.
I don't think Nim. Have you ever shown your dog on your video?
Oh, beautiful. I have shown my dog, but she's a German Shepherd, so it's a bit difficult to get her up on my lap. But I have showed clips. If you look at some of my videos, I've showed clips with my dog, playing with my dog. Right? But it's going to happen more often now.
Okay.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, more dogs.
He's a big
My
German
other
Shepherd.
dog, Chico, he's been a bit poorly. So we're a bit worried about him. So I'm hoping, because we are like genuinely worried about him. He's lost loads of hair. He was freaking out yesterday, and he was doing loads of crying and being sick. And he's 16, and we are a bit worried. So. And all the time we were worried about him and trying to give him like sort of seeing if he was okay. His brother was going, "What about me? What about me? What about?" It's like, start off, Ralph.
Yeah. Hope he gets better.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a bit worried about him.
Oh, my wife just handed me something. But where is it? Oh, this way.
Yeah.
There you go.
Awesome.
And that's exactly the age I am now.
You did a video with the 3 of you in the video, didn't you? Were you like an outside video?
Yeah, I did an outside video, yeah. It's very difficult. German Shepherd, and I sit up on a chair. So I can't have her on my lap. And it's, it's kind of difficult.
Yeah, it's true.
But she's beautiful, and she's our baby. And sometimes we get worried about her because she doesn't eat properly, so we have to hand feed her. To some we have to, she won't, obviously attention seeking, but we have to feed her, so we actually break it up and hand feed her, and that's how she'll eat some nights. But she was a special case when we got her. So I like a rescue. So just showing her lots of love, so now she's okay. But yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right. So Carrie was the book that Stephen King was going to throw away, but his wife was determined that it was a great story.
Took it out of the dustbin and got it published.
Yeah.
School.
All right.
Did you know before anyway? Did you know that the very first book that Stephen King wrote that was published eventually? Anyone?
No.
The Long Walk.
The Long
Walk he wrote when he was a student, and it got published after Carrie.
Everyone loves that. I haven't read that yet, but everyone loves that one, don't they?
It's brilliant. Yeah. But he wrote it as a student, and now it's a lot of people's favorites.
Yeah.
First thing he wrote. Yeah.
I tell you what, I'm talking about dogs again. I've got 2 copies of that because I ordered it from eBay. Yeah, and this was before we had a little cagey thing for our letterbox, and the dogs ripped it apart when it came through the letterbox, and I had to order it again. Little bastards. Didn't you?
That's okay.
So I got 2 copies.
I'm for. I mean, You don't see it much on my. I have these plexiglass on my bottom shelf of books. Protect my books because I have cats, and that's mostly for urinary tract infections.
Right.
Because when a cat gets a urinary tract infection, they have to pee against a upright surface. So
You don't want that.
don't want that. But occasionally you'll see them reach up and they will pull books off the higher shelves. Reach up.
If it was I tell you what though, Greg, if it was a book about urine, it might make it more powerful experience reading it.
What?
If it smelled of urine and it was about urine.
I don't know about that. Okay.
Who invited this guy? I know.
Let's see what else, if we have anything else specifically to say about Finders Keepers, because we've kind of gone way off the track here.
Yeah, my copy did not smell of urine.
Now,
part of the fun.
Now, I've heard a lot of you mention that you really liked the end of Finders Keepers, and how I thought it was very much paralleled Mr. Mercedes, where they're racing against the clock to the first one, not send a bomb, and this time is to find Peter before Morris finds Peter. And
I did find that at the end of Mr. Mercedes, I enjoyed Mr. Mercedes in the ending, but I did feel like they were going to do it. Whereas with Finders Keepers, I thought Peter might die. So I think the tension was stronger with
Finders Keepers.
Finders Keepers for some reason. Even though, like as we said, there's nothing wrong with Mr. Mercedes, it's really good. But I just felt like when I was reading it that it was like, they're gonna stop him. It might be because the stakes were so high. He was in the middle of a football stadium, wasn't it? Is it a football stadium?
Boy band concert somewhere like that.
Oh, boy, yeah, it's a band. Yeah, it's a music concert. Yeah, so it just felt like there's no way he's going to kill hundreds of people at the end of the book. I didn't think so. I think because it was one person, one child in the back of a shop, I thought, wow, he might die. So I felt like the tension was stronger in the second book.
Yeah, I mean, the first book there was the unexpected. Well, you knew someone was going to die in that book. Just you had to kill someone. But this one, there wasn't enough characters to kill off.
Yeah. It wasn't a surprise when his mum died. When Brady's mum died.
No, that was not the character. It was the Bill had taken up with Holly's sister.
Yeah.
That was quite a scene.
Inadvertently, she was in his car.
Right.
Yeah, that was quite cool the way that worked. And I didn't see it coming. I should have seen it coming. Obviously, they switched cars, and she had his hat on. So it was all set up. But I didn't. It was.
And that's one of the reasons he keeps visiting him in hospital, even though he's supposed to be catatonic, because that's haunting him. That's haunting him.
Yeah.
Right. That's right at the end when he keeps visiting this guy. He's supposed to be a vegetable. What? Comatose?
Yeah, bro.
But I think that's one of the reasons, because he can't get over the fact that she died in place of him. Yeah. But just getting to
the ending. The end, it's like kind of hinting that he's like.
I don't think it's hinting. I think he's pretty explicit that Brady's doing that at the end of the book.
Yeah.
What is this final thing? Clank. Something.
Yeah, clank.
There's the picture, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And didn't in that book someone commit suicide? One of the nurses mentioned.
Yeah,
that's right.
So you're getting hints of where he's definitely got an idea where he's going.
Yeah.
For the next one.
And that's why I said I'm so excited for that. I like the whole supernatural angle more, so I'm kind of excited for the next one. Even though this was good, and I loved the ending. And you mentioned the letters. Sorry, you were very upset that the manuscripts got burned.
Manuscripts got burned.
Yeah, I was actually thought it was very fitting, because he was burning up with the desire to read these things. So, bit of a psycho. So to be in the fire with the book.
Well, I thought it was good that there was a loss. So Peter suffered from losing the books. He didn't want that to happen. So there was some consequence to the conflict, to the
Right.
climax, if you like. So rather than the character dying, the thing that was driving them was lost. I thought that was quite cool.
Cool.
Oh, one more point. Were all the books there? Wasn't there something where he put something behind his thing at home?
Yeah, he moved some, didn't he?
Yeah, I kind of remember that too. Did he throw those in? I don't know.
I'm just putting it out there.
I think he said he moved some.
I think so. I wonder if there's a plot hole that Stephen King forgot about.
Or maybe we just forgot about it and we should have remembered.
Maybe there's a sentence where he said he grabbed the notebooks from the behind the shelf and tossed them in the bag as well.
Oh, we're gonna have to read it again.
I don't think this is going to be high on my reread list. I mean, I liked it, but I'm more interested in seeing where he takes the story. And like you said, I'm really hoping this time it's about Bill and Holly taking off. And the thing is, this is not spoiled. This is imagining. I'm pretty sure Bill's going to die in this book.
I know he is. The title of the book.
His wife's put in the watch. Okay.
End of the
I don't
watch.
think Jerome, doesn't look like Jerome's going to be in it much because it sounded like he was kind of coming away from the plot a little bit.
Once you start a series like this and you have your set character, he's got to come in. You can't just write him out.
Well, I know he's not going to die. Guaranteed. That's Holly.
Or Jerome's not going to die.
Yeah, Holly ain't going to die.
Holly.
Well, we kind of know she's in some more books. So yeah.
Unless she dies and comes back.
Say that again? What?
Unless she dies and comes back, like a Marvel character or something.
Maybe so. We'll have to figure it out. All right. Do we have anything else to say about Finders Keepers, or do you want to call it a day? Or
a lot of
tell everyone to read it. It was very good. Everyone agreed it was good. So.
He said it would never reach the top of my list, but it's a solid. It's a fun read.
That's a fun book.
Solid book.
Took me a while to get into. I was kind of, but I'm not heavy into crime thrillers. Really, it took me a little while, but once I got into it, second half of the book raced like a freight train to that climax. I loved it.
I tell you what, I'd say most books it takes me a while to get into it. It's very rare to find a book that grabs you in the first few chapters. For me,
Stephen King, It.
Yeah, that's one I haven't read yet. I've got it. I haven't read it yet. So yeah. Say again now.
Oh, I envy that. Yeah, I look forward to you reading it.
I'm waiting for a time when I don't have to read anything else, and then I can just go for it.
It's a long book.
I haven't read it either.
You enjoyed it, Greg?
Should we, Nim? Should we buddy read it at some point?
Well, Cliff's point. I read it when it was first published.
Yeah, and you loved it then.
I liked it then.
I
don't know if I'd love it. I mean, I was. It's a good book. I mean, it would rank up there with some of my favorite King books, and I actually do want to reread it eventually. Mm-hmm. Part of is I won't go into major spoiler, but the end of it, a lot of people really get upset with the ending of it.
Yeah, we're not going to go there. I'm not going
to get spoiler, but my one thing is that I actually thought it was an appropriate ending for the book, even though people get all bunged about it nowadays.
You know what the funny thing is? I read it when I was 15. My wife, pretty much the same.
Right.
We couldn't even remember that. It was like a non-issue. Which is strange.
Everyone mentions it now because I haven't read the book, but I know what you're talking about. Everyone talks about that. They always say something about it. But do you feel like it's because I obviously haven't read it, but do you feel like it's because of everything he went through, it kind of ends up being some sort of release or something?
this is gonna. It should be if we ever do. Maybe after we finish with Holly, we could think about individual books and do that one and have a proper
That'd be good.
discussion.
Yeah.
Because I think that it's all current cultural attitudes that really drive their objection to that book. But that's
I'm not going to say anything. I actually
I'll have to
will
reread it.
If I reread the book, that might be a very problematic point for me. But I'm not rereading a book; it's too damn long. got other books to read.
Ain't got no time for that.
Got plenty of other books to read. So yeah.
So here's Leslie. This is probably one of the last comments. You need to watch Mr. Mercedes TV series when you were finished. Brendan Gleeson stars and it's really good. I like the books better, but better than them. But the show is good, creepy fun.
Brendan Gleeson's brilliant.
I
So that's
didn't
a
know
nice
there was a TV show.
I didn't either. Yeah.
I don't really watch adaptations anymore, but that's just me being strange,
But I think Stephen King's fame pretty much comes from the fact there's been so many adaptations of his stuff. Like my mum, who does not read anything, never read a book in her life, she knows who Stephen King is. Do you know what I mean? And that's because there's been so many films and TV shows made from his stuff.
Well,
I would recommend one. One Storm of the Century. Have you ever heard of Storm of the Century?
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
A miniseries. It is absolutely phenomenal, and it's not based on a book of his. It's based on a screenplay that he wrote. Very difficult to get hold of, and it's phenomenal. I'd love to get my hands on that.
Okay. Well, everyone, I think we've got towards at the end. I'd like to thank Cliff, Nin, Alan, and Gareth for showing up. And Bad in the comments, who unfortunately was too ill to show up. You're going to make it next month because we want you here, Bad. And let's call that a show.
An international show.
An international show.
International show. Yeah.